I've always been deeply intrigued by what happens after we die, the great mystery of the afterlife. This question lingers in the minds of many. Do our departed loved ones continue to watch over us from beyond? This isn't just a curiosity, it strikes at the core of our existence and the bonds that shape our lives. Throughout history, countless cultures and spiritual traditions have grappled with this enigma, offering a rich tapestry of beliefs and stories. Some hold that the dead remain aware of the world they left behind, watching over family and friends. Others insist that death ushers souls into an entirely separate dimension, disconnected from earthly life. While exploring this profound question, I came across the remarkable work of Edgar Cayce, a humble man from Kentucky who entered trance states and revealed astonishingly detailed insights into health, spirituality, and the nature of the afterlife. What makes Cayce's revelations so compelling is how they seem to weave together Eastern spiritual philosophies and Western religious thought. My own quest began after the passing of my grandmother. In the weeks after her funeral, strange coincidences surfaced, her favorite song playing at unexpected moments, vivid dreams where she appeared bearing messages, and an inexplicable sense of her presence during moments of indecision. Were these experiences just psychological comforts, the mind's way of coping with grief? Or were they genuine glimpses into the unseen? As I spoke with others who'd experienced similar phenomena, I realized I wasn't alone. A close friend shared how after her father's death, she suddenly felt compelled to avoid a dangerous stretch of highway. A hunch she couldn't explain, but trusted completely what she believes was her father's protective intervention. Another acquaintance recounted finding a crucial family document in a place he had searched repeatedly, only discovering it on the anniversary of his mother's death. These stories, while fascinating, fall short of scientific proof. The mainstream scientific community often dismisses such accounts as coincidence, wishful thinking, or the brain's effort to find meaning amidst grief. Psychologists explain these experiences as natural mechanisms for maintaining bonds with those we've lost, a healthy part of the grieving process. Still, across many spiritual and religious traditions, there are recurring themes that suggest ongoing connections between the living and the dead. In numerous cultures, prayers for the departed are believed to aid souls on their spiritual journey, implying some ongoing relationship between this world and the afterlife. What makes this inquiry so compelling is how it intersects with our deepest hopes and fears. The fear of absolute separation and the hope that consciousness continues beyond physical death. The possibility that our loved ones might still witness our joys and struggles offers comfort, and for some, a profound sense of moral accountability. As I delved deeper, I found myself embracing a middle ground, neither outright dismissing these experiences nor accepting them uncritically. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between total separation and constant awareness, in a realm where the boundary between life and death is more fluid than commonly believed. I turned to historical and spiritual records, discovering a far more complex picture than I had imagined. Ancient civilizations from Egypt to China developed intricate rituals honoring their ancestors, firmly believing that the dead influenced the living world. Egyptians left offerings in tombs, convinced that the deceased needed sustenance in the afterlife. Similarly, Chinese families continue to burn paper money and symbolic goods, maintaining the conviction that ancestors require these gifts in the spirit realm. These enduring practices reveal a persistent belief that the dead remain connected to the living. Meanwhile, modern Western perspectives largely favor a scientific and clinical approach to death. The gulf between science and spirituality has left many mysteries unresolved, with empirical evidence demanding proof that consciousness survives death, proof that remains elusive. Yet countless individuals report meaningful encounters with deceased loved ones. Dr. Raymond Moody, who coined the term near-death experience in 1975, documented over 1,000 cases of people who were clinically dead and then revived. Many described floating above their bodies, traveling through tunnels of light, or meeting departed relatives. Skeptics attribute these phenomena to brain chemistry or oxygen deprivation, but the remarkable consistency across cultures and generations remains a puzzle. My research also led me to Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who spent decades working with dying patients. She recorded numerous instances where terminally ill individuals reported seeing and speaking with deceased family members in their final days. These deathbed visions often brought immense peace, suggesting a liminal meeting place between worlds. During one phase of my investigation, I spoke with Maria, a hospice nurse with 30 years of experience. "I've witnessed too many unexplainable moments," she confided. "Patients who haven't spoken for days suddenly hold lucid conversations with invisible visitors. Others sense when distant relatives have passed away without any prior knowledge. There's something beyond medical science happening here." In recent decades, the scientific community has begun to seriously study after-death communication, ADC, where the bereaved report contact from deceased loved ones. Dr. Julie Beichel's laboratory research at the Windbridge Institute has produced intriguing findings under controlled conditions, lending credibility to some aspects of these experiences. What fascinates me most are the recurring patterns. The dead rarely communicate about trivial matters. Instead, messages often involve reassurance, unresolved emotions, or guidance through significant life challenges. This suggests not constant observation, but a selective awareness rooted in emotional bonds. Reflecting on Edgar Cayce's teachings, the afterlife is not a distant place, but a different vibrational state that coexists alongside our own reality. Consciousness, he proposed, continues on multiple levels simultaneously, with the deceased remaining aware of their loved ones through deep emotional connections rather than constant surveillance. One afternoon, while visiting a small church in New England, I met an elderly man who shared his story. After losing his wife of 60 years. "I was driving home from her funeral when our song came on the radio, the one they never play anymore," he said. "The car was filled with her perfume. People might call it coincidence, grief, or imagination, but I know when something is real. She was there just for a moment, letting me know she's okay." These personal accounts raise profound questions. If consciousness is solely a product of brain function, how do we explain shared death experiences, where healthy individuals witness similar visions while caring for dying loved ones? Or the many cases where people receive information they couldn't possibly know through ordinary means? Quantum physics offers an intriguing parallel: the concept of non-locality, where particles once connected continue to influence each other regardless of distance. Could consciousness operate similarly, maintaining connections that transcend physical separation, even death? As I continued this journey, I realized the most important question might not be whether the dead watch us, but how this possibility influences the way we live. If our actions and choices remain visible to those we've lost, does that change how we approach life? Does it inspire us to live with greater authenticity? Understanding that true separation might be an illusion, I explored how various spiritual traditions perceive the relationship between the living and the dead. This led to surprising insights about consciousness itself. Buddhism teaches that consciousness persists after death, entering either rebirth or intermediate states. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes in vivid detail the 49 days after death, during which the deceased remain aware of their loved one's grief, while gradually releasing earthly attachments to progress spiritually. This suggests not constant watching, but a fading awareness as souls transition. In contrast, many indigenous cultures believe ancestors actively participate in community life. The Maori of New Zealand see departed family members as guardians, guiding and protecting their descendants. During sacred ceremonies, the veil between worlds thins, allowing direct communication. Similarly, Mexico's Day of the Dead festival honors ancestors believed to visit their families during this time. Islamic tradition describes a state called barzakh, a barrier between death and resurrection, where the soul retains limited awareness, especially when prayers and visits are offered by family focusing on spiritual rather than daily matters. Across these diverse perspectives, a common thread emerges. The afterlife is not a distant, unknowable place, but a continuum of existence deeply intertwined with our own. The dead, in many ways, remain part of the living story. What fascinated me most throughout my research was how diverse cultural traditions, despite their vast differences, converge on several common themes about the afterlife. Across the world, many belief systems hold that the departed maintain some form of connection with those they loved in life. Yet their focus remains primarily on their own spiritual journey beyond this physical existence. The presence of these souls isn't constant or intrusive. Rather, it seems selective, appearing during meaningful moments or when specifically called through prayer, meditation, or ritual. To deepen my understanding, I interviewed Dr. Samantha Fletcher, a grief counselor who has worked closely with hundreds of bereaved individuals, reporting what are known as after-death communications. Over her 20-year career, Dr. Fletcher has gathered an extensive body of evidence on this phenomenon. What stood out to her and to me was the striking consistency in how these experiences manifest. They often occur in transitional states of consciousness, just as someone is falling asleep, waking up, or during deep meditation. Interestingly, the deceased rarely appear as ghostly apparitions. Instead, their presence is communicated through subtle signs, symbols, synchronistic events, or sensory impressions. It might be a familiar fragrance that triggers a memory, a meaningful song playing unexpectedly, or an object moving in a way that feels intentional. Dr. Fletcher explained that these moments typically align with major life events, births, weddings, graduations, or during times of crisis when the living seek guidance most intensely. This pattern suggests a selective awareness rather than continuous surveillance. I thought back to James, a combat veteran who lost his closest friend in Afghanistan. During one of his darkest moments grappling with suicidal thoughts, James suddenly felt a distinct pressure on his shoulder, his friend's unique gesture of support. In that instant, I knew he was there. James shared tears streaming down his face. It felt like he was telling me to keep going. That experience changed everything. These accounts find intriguing parallels in modern quantum physics. Physicist David Bohm introduced the idea of the implicate order, a deeper level of reality from which our physical world unfolds. In this framework, consciousness might exist at a more fundamental plane than matter itself, potentially continuing after physical death within this underlying reality. Similarly, the theory of non-local consciousness posits that awareness is not confined to the brain or body, but extends beyond traditional physical boundaries. Dr. Pim van Lommel, a cardiologist, renowned for his near-death experience research, suggests that consciousness acts like a field of information, interacting with the brain rather than being generated by it. If this is accurate, it could explain how consciousness persists beyond the cessation of brain function, implying a continuity of experience beyond death. During my investigation, I also spoke with Thomas, a physics professor who experienced what he described as direct contact with his deceased wife. A skeptic by nature, Thomas initially dismissed these encounters as grief-induced illusions, but then his wife communicated precise information about hidden documents, details he could not have known otherwise. That's when I realized our understanding of consciousness might need a radical update, Thomas confessed. Perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from children who claim to remember past lives. Dr. Jim Tucker at the University of Virginia has documented over 2,500 such cases. These children often provide detailed, verifiable facts about deceased individuals, facts impossible to learn through normal means, including obscure personal details causes of death, and the location of hidden possessions. What truly amazed me was how these personal stories, scientific studies, and spiritual teachings intersect with the descriptions of Edgar Cayce, the famed psychic who spoke extensively about the afterlife. He described it as a realm of varying vibrational states or dimensions, where consciousness continues its journey through multiple planes. According to Edgar, the dead remain aware of their loved ones through bonds of affection that transcend physical death. However, their primary focus shifts toward their own spiritual growth and evolution. As I compiled these insights, a clear pattern emerged. The veil separating our world from the afterlife may be far thinner than we have been taught to believe. The real question might not be whether the dead watch the living, but how the dynamic relationship between consciousness, love, and perception endures beyond physical separation. Near the end of my journey, I spent time at a remote mountain monastery, speaking with monks who preserve ancient traditions of ancestor communication. Brother Michael, with 4 decades of contemplative practice, offered a profound perspective. The question of whether the dead watch us assumes a separation that may not truly exist. Perhaps we are asking the wrong question altogether. Instead of wondering if they watch from over there, consider that the boundaries between here and there might be illusions, limited constructs of human perception. His words echoed principles from quantum mechanics like entanglement and non-locality, where 2 particles that once interacted remain connected regardless of distance, influencing each other instantaneously. Maybe consciousness operates in a similar way, maintaining connections that transcend space and time. In my research, I also encountered the work of Dr. Helen Wambach, who conducted regression studies with over 1,000 subjects, recalling memories from between lives. Her findings suggest that souls often reincarnate within soul groups, clusters of beings who repeatedly incarnate together, shifting relationships but remaining connected across lifetimes. This could explain why certain bonds feel so immediate and profound. We might be recognizing souls we have known intimately through many existences. Mystics across cultures describe reality as a unified field of consciousness, from which individual awareness temporarily arises like waves from the ocean. In this view, death is not an end, but a transformation, a return to a broader multidimensional awareness that still preserves the unique qualities each soul developed in physical life. Among the most compelling phenomena I encountered were cases of terminal lucidity, when patients with severe dementia or brain injury suddenly regain complete clarity shortly before death. One woman, after years of unrecognition, sat up, called each family member by name, shared deep insights into family matters, and then peacefully passed away hours later. Such cases challenge the materialist notion that consciousness is solely a product of brain activity. I remembered a conversation with Elizabeth, whose 4-year-old son had never met his grandfather but spoke of him with uncanny detail. The boy described Grandpa's red tractor and even the missing fingers on his left hand. Details Elizabeth said he couldn't have known. When asked how he learned these facts, the boy simply said, "Grandpa told me when I was sleeping." These weren't vague memories, they were specific, verifiable details about a man who died 2 years before the boy was born. Returning to Edgar Cayce's teachings, which sparked this journey, I realized his portrayal of the afterlife aligns remarkably with modern quantum theories. He described consciousness existing simultaneously across multiple dimensions, with death marking a shift in awareness from one vibrational state to another. Increasingly, it seems the relationship between the living and the dead is not about occasional visits or distant observation. Instead, it resembles an ongoing dialogue between different states of the same consciousness, like water existing as ice, liquid, and vapor, simultaneously, each with distinct qualities but all composed of the same essence. This perspective transforms how we understand grief and separation. Perhaps we never truly lose those we love. Our connection persists, even though the form of communication changes. Like radio waves that surround us unseen, requiring a receiver to be heard, Our departed loved ones may maintain awareness of us accessible when we tune into their frequency through meditation, prayer, or in the delicate moments between waking and sleeping. Jessica, who lost her daughter in a tragic accident, shared a deeply moving experience on the first anniversary of her daughter's passing. While planting flowers at the gravesite, a butterfly, her daughter's lifelong symbol, landed gently on Jessica's hand and stayed for nearly 10 minutes. As I sat there, a wave of peace washed over me, Jessica recalled. Amen. It was a knowing beyond words that she was okay, still with me in some way. This was no mere wishful thinking. It was an undeniable sense of presence, a connection rooted in love and awareness. Across spiritual teachings, scientific research, and thousands of personal stories, clear themes emerge. The dead are most aware of our emotional states, not our mundane actions. They are particularly attuned to moments of joy, crisis, and transition. Their messages almost always convey reassurance, love, and guidance, not judgment or surveillance. Perhaps the most beautiful implication is that love itself is the fundamental bridge that sustains these connections. In quantum physics, entanglement requires interaction for particles to remain linked. Maybe love serves as the invisible force linking souls across the veil of death, ensuring that the bonds we cherish endure in the afterlife and beyond. Emotional bonds and the afterlife. Connections beyond physical separation. Emotional bonds, imamas, have a remarkable power. They may create connections that transcend the physical boundaries of life and death. This insight helps explain why profound experiences of after-death communication most often occur between individuals who share deep, enduring affection. The intensity of these connections suggests that the afterlife is not a distant, disconnected realm, but a dimension where love continues to bridge the gap between worlds. As I conclude this exploration into the mysteries of the afterlife, I'm reminded of ancient wisdom traditions that do not see death as a final ending, but rather as a transformation, a passage from one room to another within the vast mansion of existence. Just as the boundaries between waking and dreaming can blur, so too might the veil between life and death be far more permeable than we have been conditioned to believe. The question of whether the dead watch the living may be limited by our current ways of thinking. Perhaps a more expansive understanding is that consciousness persists beyond the physical body, continuing its journey while maintaining connections forged through love. These connections evolve and expand as consciousness moves into broader states of awareness. Those we have lost are not truly gone. They have simply transformed. They are not absent, but present in ways that our physical senses are not fully equipped to perceive. This perspective offers more than solace. It presents a profound responsibility. If the veil between our world and the afterlife is thin, and if consciousness endures beyond death, then the way we live our lives holds significance that transcends this lifetime. Every act of love, every moment of genuine presence, and every choice we make toward growth sends ripples through the multidimensional fabric of existence. This creates an unfolding tapestry of consciousness that weaves through the very essence of what we call life and death. For example, consider the stories shared by those who have experienced near-death or after-death communications, moments of comforting guidance during crises, unexpected signs during times of mourning, or synchronicities that provide reassurance. These are not random coincidences, but may be manifestations of ongoing interactions between the living and those who have transitioned to the afterlife. If these connections truly exist, it invites us to live with greater awareness and intention. We participate not only in our own journey, but in the larger continuum of consciousness that connects all beings across time and space. If this topic resonates with you, hit the subscribe button below and activate notifications. Join a growing community dedicated to exploring the profound mysteries of life, death, and the afterlife. Together, we will continue peeling back the veil between worlds, seeking deeper understanding and connection beyond what we see.